On the Track is a web TV show about cryptozoology, natural history, green issues and whatever else the team feel like making up as they go along. Enjoy!
I think we're going to begin today's show with a bit of culture. Ladies and gentlemen, on top of the pops tonight, we have the one and only Ken Jevons with Barry Tadcaster and a smashing dance routine from Pan's Pooch.
But stop what there she's there, I say, please share my umbrella. But stop, bus goes, she stays, love grows under my umbrella.
I think someone has to do an interesting scientific study upon the effect of umbrellas, parasols and other folding canopies designed for personal use to protect one from the rain or sun upon human courtship. Well done to everyone involved.
I really like the old credits.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name's John Downs and I'm the director of the Centre for Fortean Zoology, and welcome to another episode of On the Track. For those of you who are not already in the know, who hopefully have been brought here by the judicious use of our new thumbnails, which are designed to make the algorithm at YouTube very, very happy and to promote us hand over fist. So assuming that's all worked, some of you will not have seen the show before, so you ought to be aware that every Saturday afternoon for half an hour or so, and every Wednesday evening for about half that, we bring you a potpourri of hard science, weird shit, and surreality. What's surreality? Well, the fact that we have a make-believe chicken co-presenting the show and rambling on for far too long about umbrellas is probably a pretty good inkling of what surreality is. But now, on with the show. It's bloody hot, as you've probably noticed, unless you happen to be living in somewhere where it's not bloody hot. But here in the UK, it's absolutely sweltering. And I think that if there are still people who do not believe in climate change, even after all this, then really, I don't know what else can be done to convince you short of sticking a flaming torch up your left nostril. But I wouldn't do a thing like that because I'm very nice. I'm not. I would because I believe in anthropogenic climate change. Yes, Hennis, I'm sure you do, but you ought to stick to the script. Why? Mankind doesn't. Well, I think that Hennis, as being what an ex-girlfriend of mine 20 plus years ago used to say, being all existential-like, and I'm sure she was right. I'm sure Hennis is being all existential-like, but as I've never understood what existential meant, and nobody's ever been able to explain it to me in a way that I can remember for more than 5 minutes, I think we'll leave it there and get on with the rest of the show, because we've got a really good show for you today, the first of a two-parter, which might end up being more than a two-parter, on the shores of Loch Ness. I want to introduce you to a guy called Iann Squibs. He is a great friend of the show and he's been contributing to the live chat on Saturday afternoons quite a long time now. And a couple of months ago he told me that he was going up to Loch Ness because he had a particular quest in mind, and I asked him if he could film it for us, and he said of course he could. So over to you, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Iann Squibs. So it's lovely to see you at last, Ian. It's nice, always nice to be able to put a voice and a face to a name. Thanks for coming on the show.
Very nice to meet you as well, Jonathan, after all this time, and thank you for having me. I'm a big fan of the program.
I believe you went to Loch Ness recently.
I did, yes. It was excellent. So I thought rather than holiday abroad this year, I'd go to Loch Ness and investigate the monster, and perhaps even see it myself and visit some of the locations of the classic sightings and some of the classic photographs. So that's what I did. But
you started off in Reading, I believe.
I did, yes. And it started when I was reading this book here.
Golly.
The Owlman and Others. An excellent read by a guy called Jonathan Downes. So I recommend it. And this is where my journey started with this book. And you cover not only the Owlman but Morgue as well, the Cornish sea serpent. So some good information in the book on that. And I came across this article, which is an article, Loch Ness Man to investigate the Morgue reports, which is about legendary Loch Ness investigator Tim Dinsdale. And obviously this was in the 70s. He'd done a lot of investigation into Nessie, so he decided to also look into Morgue as well. Wasn't the only sea animal that he was interested in. Also, he investigated the Loch Ness Monster as well. So, but yeah, interestingly though, in the article, it says to, if you have any information on aquatic beasts, to contact him at an address in Reading, which is where I live. And interestingly, the address is just around the corner from me. So, so I thought I'd go around and pay the house a visit and see what it looks like today.
Right, so here we are. I'm actually outside Tim Dinsdale's house, and I've got my two books here. Owlman. I've got the page there, which tells you where Tim lived. There's two, and I've also got this book, which was written by Tim's son about life with his father as well. But let's have a look at the house. Let's see, this one here. Two people stood there, aren't they going? There they go. So it's actually that house there. Let's have a look. So it's this house. That's where Tim lived, in Reading. And apparently there was a shed in the back garden where Tim did his research, and his family called it Nutter's Nook, because they thought Tim was a bit of a nutter because of his hobby. Shall we go and have a look in and ask? Let's have a look. 1 second. Let's just see. I wonder if there's anyone in.
So that's what I went to I visited the house just to have a quick look and see what it looked like. Whilst I was there, though, this lady spotted me in the house and came out and asked me what I was doing, nosing around her house. So I thought I was honest and said, I knew that Tim Dinsdale used to live there. And do you have any information on the previous occupants of the house? And she said she was Tim Dinsdale's daughter.
Good Lord.
So, yes. So the Dinsdale family still live in that house. So I said, well, it would be nice if you could, maybe do a Teams meeting with me for 10 minutes or something. Just give us a bit of information about your father. Maybe you've got some artifacts you could show us about those days hunting. There's this book here, which was written by her brother, called Angus, and it's called The Man Who Filmed Nessie, which is about Tim Dinsdale, and he used to take his family along on his monster quests in the summer. So, an interesting read. She said, well, she gave me her email address and said email her, so I did, and then she replied and said, well, no, she didn't. She changed her mind. She then didn't want to give me an interview, which is a bit of a shame, really, because there would have been some good information there. So she replied anyway to me and said the following: "Dear Ian, many thanks for your email. I'm glad to know that you have an interest in Loch Ness, as it remains an intriguing place with quite a history. Thank you also for your interest in my father's work and for the invitation to talk to you for your program. I will, however, politely decline, as this is not something I or other family members are interested in doing. I wish you good luck in your continued research and good hunting in the cryptozoological world. Kind regards, Dawn." So yeah, that was a bit disappointing, to be honest, but if she didn't want to talk about it, then that's fine. But there are some, as I said, this book I recommend. You can probably get it on eBay or wherever, Amazon. And there are, there are pictures of her and her family as a child in there. It tells you all about the search with her father and about also his famous film, which these days people tend to believe that's a boat. What do you think, Jonathan? Do you think he filmed the monster, or do you think it was a boat?
No, I remember back 17 years ago, last time I went to Loch Ness, Richard Freeman and I were doing an American TV show with, of all people,
I remember.
Penn and Teller.
Yes.
And we spent quite a lot of time with Adrian Shine, who's jolly nice chap.
Yes.
And Adrian showed us some stuff that he'd done, overlaying different frames of the Dinsdale film over and over again, and you can see clearly it's a boat, which is a great pity.
Yeah. Yes, he said it was. He said he watched the film one day with the contrast turned up on his TV, and he could see a helmsman at the back of the object, and it was a bit disappointing. Tim did actually film a boat as well the day after he took that film for comparison, but the objects do look different, but yeah, it was different lighting conditions. The boat was a different color, so. And the film itself is very grainy, isn't it? So yeah, so that was the initial part of my journey before I headed to Loch Ness.
So what happened then?
Well, a long journey from Reading to Scotland, and we arrived at Fort Augustus, and it was then time to investigate some of the famous sightings that we know about. So first port of call would have been the Lachlan Stewart photo location. So I'll give you a bit of background into it if you're not familiar with Lachlan Stewart. But the story goes as follows. On Saturday, the 14th of July, 1951, Lachlan Stewart, a woodsman who worked for the Forestry Commission, had arisen at about 6:30 a.m. to milk his cow on the croft that he and his family occupied about 100 feet above Loch Ness at Whitefield, which is opposite Urquhart Castle. He glanced out of the window of his cottage and he saw something large moving out in the loch. Calling out to his friend, Mr. Hay, bear that main name in mind, who was staying at his cottage, Stewart grabbed his box camera and the two men ran down to the shore. They were met with the sight of a huge creature displaying 3 separate triangular humps with water showing between each. It moved at a fair speed as it passed within 50 yards of the shore. It was then that Stewart snapped his now famous photo. Shortly after the incident, Richard Freer met Lachlan Stewart with a view to buying a horse. Stewart took Freer down to the loch side where he had taken the photo and concealed in the foliage were 3 bales of hay and some strips of tarpaulin. Stewart said that these were the humps that he had photographed, and he seemed to be pleased that he had played this joke. Apart from the fact that the humps were strangely angular and could be partly submerged bales of hay, was Stewart also dropping a hint when he said that the person that he saw the monster with was a Mr. Hay? Was that actually was he actually playing a little joke on us there? Anyway, that's the story. So my research into the location took me to Whitefield on the south side of Loch Ness, opposite Urquhart Bay.
So it was around this spot on the shore of the loch in July 1951 that Lachlan Stewart photographed the monster in shallow waters. That shot would have been that way. I think the mountains haven't changed much in the background. There's the 3-humped monster that Stewart photographed. Must have been very near this location. As it turned out, he'd actually faked the photo with bales of hay, which he probably discarded somewhere around here in these bushes after making the photo. But to the shot though. There's the shot there. The Lachlan Stewart photo.
I was always a bit dubious about the Lachlan Stewart sighting because the 3 humps are so equidistant. I always thought if it had been a real animal, the humps would have been different sizes and not equidistant.
And not so angular.
Mm.
They could have been. It looks more likely if it is a real animal, then it's probably 3 separate animals rather than one with that kind of structure.
And
but
I think the chances of photographing one Nessie is difficult enough. The chances of having 3 of them in a little row is impossible, I would say.
Yes, and it is quite close to shore as well, so the water is quite shallow there. So, but yeah, that was a bit of Loch Ness history.
And I'm afraid we have to leave it there for this episode, but we'll be back next time with the story of the Peter McNab photo and lots else besides. I found this story on Quora the other day, And although it turned out not to be exactly what it was claimed to be, it is an interesting story which I share with you, both the original claims and what turned out to be the truth. The original claim is that this photograph was taken very recently near a village in Assam, and that the leopard had been orphaned when it was only 28 days old, and somehow the mother cow had adopted it. Now this I quite understood, because I remember when we first got the kittens, we still had Prudence. We had Prudence, who was a very motherly old dog, and she, as soon as she saw the kittens, despite the fact that they were a completely different genus, lay on her back so they could suckle at her. The fact she didn't have any more also was fairly irrelevant, but the maternal instinct took over. So I was quite prepared to believe this, but I don't believe anything until I've looked into it a bit more. And it turns out that the story didn't take place in Assam, and it wasn't a recent one. It actually took place somewhere in Gujarat, round about the beginning of this century. The story of the baby leopard being brought up by the cow is not true, but apparently the leopard was caught with its mother, and the mother was released back into the forest, leaving the leopard, a female sub-adult, back in the village where it was reared to adulthood by the villagers, and the leopard and the cow did indeed make friends, and it appears that the leopard, who used to sit with the cow when she lived in the village, came back once she was released into the forest to make friends again with the cow various times at night. And I think it's a nice story. It warms the cockles of your heart, as my grandmother would have said, and I give it to you for what it's worth.
If you want to support us and help us make more content like these, please press like, subscribe, follow our Facebook page and check out our Patreon.
And as the ghost of Joe Strummer, who's an ever more regular visitor to my little studio, wants me to remind you, always press the notification bell. Otherwise you won't be told when there's a new show to watch. And that would be an awful pity, wouldn't it? Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's about it for this episode. I want to say a very big thank you to Iann Squibs. I think that the research he did up at Loch Ness is remarkable, and it brings a whole section of the Loch Ness Monster history to life. And I very much look forward to sharing the next episode with you, because there's a lot more to come. I want to say a big thank you, as always, to Louis, my producer, and to Graham, who's a sweetie pie and looks after me in a remarkably wonderful way, despite the fact he's not at all well himself. And I want to say a big thank you to everybody who continues to support the CFZ in all so many sort of ways. And I'm very, very grateful to you all, and I hope you continue to support us. We'll be back next Wednesday, and what's going to be in the show, I've got no idea whatsoever. And I've got no idea what's going to be, well, I do in fact, I've got no idea what's in next Wednesday's show, but we'll be going back to Loch Ness again with Iann Squibs in next Saturday's show. So, until then, are you listening, Mr. McCrennan? I'll be seeing you.